So backing up a little bit, you had another chicken and egg problem when you were first overcoming the inertia of the malaise era, and you talked about developing the industrial parks around the periphery of Rock Hill. And that certainly solved the supply problem where all of a sudden you had site inventory available for these businesses to move into. How did you solve the demand problem? Because it's certainly not a field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. It takes a little bit more than that. What did you do during that time to overcome that inertia?
Well, that's a challenge. We're in the Charlotte market, and we identified ourselves very early on as being in the Charlotte market, and we're trying to appeal to businesses that have first chosen Charlotte as a good place for their businesses to locate, and then to make ourselves to put the case out there that we are the best place in the Charlotte region for your business to locate. The advantages that we had was that even back in the 80s and 90s, it was big real estate firms that controlled those business parks in Charlotte. If you wanted to go in and lease a building that Trammell Crow had built, that Childers Klein had built, there were plenty of opportunities for that. If you wanted to go in and own your own business, to buy a piece of land and build a 100,000 square foot building for your business to operate, there weren't very many opportunities for that in Mecklenburg County. So that was really how the part of the market that we tried to appeal to, that you could come to York County, South Carolina, you could come to Rock Hill, you could buy land for a reasonable price, you could own your own real estate and grow your own business without the challenge of having to lease property through a developer.
I'm kind of glad both of y'all are here for this question. So how has Act 388 impacted the ability to bring businesses across the border from Charlotte or elsewhere into Rock Hill or York County? And tell us a little bit about what incentives are and how you might go about bringing businesses into this area.
Okay. Well, for those, Act 388 was an act that basically eliminated property taxes for homeowners, but in essence made then commercial taxes on businesses, the only source of tax revenues that, like school districts, could control themselves. And so it put much, much more pressure on commercial property owners and business park property owners. So as the school district was growing and needing to build new schools and hire new teachers and all that kind of stuff, the only opportunity they had for raising new revenues to do that was to raise property taxes on businesses. So that was one problem. That is further compounded by the South Carolina's tax structure, which on the surface taxed businesses at 2.5 times the rate of residential of homeowners. And so if you looked on paper at what the tax rates were for businesses, for manufacturers in South Carolina, they were preposterous. No business would ever have located in South Carolina and paid those kind of taxes.
Manufacturing is a separate category altogether.
Oh, yeah.
10%.
Yeah, it was at 10.5%.
10.5%, yeah.
Yeah. So the property tax rates were just preposterous. We were further challenged by the fact that our business parks are all located inside the city of Rock Hill.
So another layer.
So another layer of property taxes. And so I think what people don't really understand when they see news reports about incentives and so forth is that in South Carolina, in York County, in Rock Hill, incentives are simply a means of leveling the playing field. If we did not have incentives available to reduce the tax burden on businesses, it would be very, very difficult.
It would be all bedrooms.
Yeah, we would be all residential. And so Act 388, the other part of that is the Act 388 increased the incentives for Rock Hill and York County to become bedroom communities to Charlotte. It became much cheaper to own a home in York County than in Mecklenburg County, much, much more expensive to own a business in York County and Rock Hill than in Charlotte.
So we're incentivizing growth with residential growth, but we're disincentivizing economic growth.
It's a terrible piece of legislation.
Yeah. What does that mean when you have a incentive structure that works against what many would consider a healthy tax base? How does that manifest? What's the reality then? Does that mean more costs on the residential homeowners? You know, in other words, if we weren't offering these incentives to bring businesses in, and we were just relying on our default tax code, what would that mean to people who actually lived here?
It would mean that we would have a very feeble school system, that residential property owners would be bearing the cost of all the public services because we would not have a robust commercial tax base that also supports local government services. Mm-hmm. Residential property taxes are just not sufficient. I mean, you'd be looking at, if we did not have a robust commercial property tax base in York County, you'd be looking at residential property taxes having to double or triple from where they are right now to make up the difference.
Would you say that's one of the major goals of having an economic development program at the municipal or county or state level, is to ensure that that doesn't happen? In other words, what's the point of the enterprise?
Well, I think that's an important part of it. I think in a more broad and general sense, we all live in this community. We're all part of this community. We want our community to be healthy. We want our community to have good schools and good opportunities for our families. The point of economic development is to create the economic environment that manifests itself in healthy schools, healthy communities, great opportunities for families, and so forth. So you can't take it for granted that when you move to a community that it's going to be that kind of community unless there's an environment where new businesses are investing and new jobs are being created.
It's dawning on me as listening to this story. So in the 80s, there was, famously a lot of macro growth. But in Rock Hill, we kind of missed out on that. At the micro level, we were involved or very dependent upon an industry that didn't fail but moved elsewhere. In the latest downturn, sort of the inverse was true. There was a lot of macro risk and downturn, but this community continued to thrive largely because of the robust and diverse tax base that was built over the last 30 years or 20 years prior to that. I guess I just want confirmation of that. How true is that, and how important is a diverse tax base to insulating a local area from macro downturn?
Well, each macro downturn is different.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, it's certainly having a robust and diverse tax base where you're not dependent on a single industry like the textile industry.
Or just financial services.
Or financial services. It certainly does provide some insulation. That is, hopefully this community will never, ever be in a position again where we have a single industry that we're dependent on. Mm-hmm. So it really does insulate the community, but it doesn't mean that we're not still subject to the winds of the economy in the future.
Yeah.